So I was sitting back today having a very difficult time with a person with whom I had grown a large attachment to over the last couple of weeks, and it made me think about the world in a global spectrum and the various issues that we face currently, whether it be homelessness, climate change, no hopers such as myself not being able to have relationships, um, with people that either will tell them to their face that they like them and then rescind their viewpoint days later or moments later or hours later or weeks later or months later. All the usual nonsense that causes some of the complications that we have in actually seeing change. Um, but you can title that as cynicism. You can say, okay, well, this isn't occurring because these people don't believe this will happen. But actually, it's kind of a more complex thing where I'll have to give a couple of examples. So a good thing to throw out here is if you're aware with my previous content, I described multiple times being turned down by various females. Now, one of them I saw in a posting several weeks or months ago, and she described some new guy that she was with, and they have a little thing on there you can go and you can look up previous content, and then she describes another guy that she was with that was, I guess, similarly patterned. The one that is she thinks is cool, and he's gonna change later on. And I'm not here to thrash the guy or talk negatively about him because I don't know him, but he sounds very similar to the one in which she detailed prior to that. Um, and I'm not to say that that relationship is just going to go down in flames, but if you notice a pattern that doesn't work, I guess it's best to avoid it. So another indication I could give you is that I'm a person who, in the few times where someone has reciprocated how they feel, it's always been someone who's gone up to me, someone who's reached out to me in some way, made their feelings known beforehand, or otherwise shown interest first. Now, there was one occasion where that was the reverse, where I just asked the person, they said yes. I looked into the sky and thanked, the Lord, if any of you believe in religion, that is. And that, there are exceptions to the rule where if you do something over and over, you're going to eventually get it. But you look at, this last presidential election, you have all these people marching around protesting Trump, talking about how horribly he's performing as president. But a lot of them, if they're part of the crew that backed Sanders, voted for Clinton out of just worrying that Trump would win, or they voted in a group in an organization that wasn't organized, where some would vote for this person, but they split the vote when they should have focused on one person. Now, the problem he's saying that is these same groups of people might even consent, yeah, we'll do this, but when it comes to that next election, and when it comes to the next time where they actually have to make that decision at the ballot box, they're going to all switch around to different people just to be safe. They're not going to all pledge, yes, this is who we're going to pick, this is who we're going to rally behind and actually, show their strength in numbers. And, you end up not sending a message to the Democratic Party, and thus getting a corporate candidate such as Clinton as the at the helm of the ticket, and ultimately seeing that person lose in the general election. Um, then you go to the various individuals who work, some certain job for oh so many years, and they retain the same position. And look, there's nothing wrong with longevity in the workforce, but I've seen in my own encounters with individuals. I had I think a classmate several years back that spoke about wanting to become the head of management at this one job, and the first thing they did after saying this was quit that job, find another one. 2 3 months later, they quit that job, went to another one. And it becomes this thing of how can you develop in one area if you're just going to keep quitting and jump to the next person, quitting and jump to the next person, quitting and jumping to the next person. And they were even advised, don't do that. Let's actually stay in one place, rank up over there, work and work and work there, and see how you do after a certain amount of time, in addition to going to school or having something to fall back on. the person ignored them, and to this day they're still shifting between positions and jobs and various other occupations that they've acquired over the last couple of years. Um, Now, the theme I want to kind of be shown here is that usually if someone suggests a way, and because in my opinion it'd be different if it was just the person who had no idea of how to do anything else just doing it. So, for example, if I were to, I don't know, tell a person whom is struggling with, I don't know, saving up for a vehicle, not to go and spend on anything they see, and this person says, "Oh man, I'm gonna make it up anyway," and they ignore me, and then you go back and you see them later, and they still don't have this, vehicle. Then obviously they didn't implement change, and that's really what's at the core of all of this. We can't deviate from our normal behavior, and I've seen myself do that for some time. I still like to go out and try approaching chicks when 9.5 times out of 10, or females 9.5 times out of 10, they're going to say no. I still like to put some things off occasionally. Oh, I'll work on this tomorrow, I'll work on that in another hour, I'll work on that this tonight. And sometimes you do end up eventually getting to it, but think of how much you're losing by playing this game of delay, delay, delay. Let me stay in my own little comfortable space. Part of the reason I went on here and I guess discussed in detail the relationship thing back at the end of 2015 was that I figured, I'm not getting any views of anything else. Let's just talk about this other subject. Let's give it a go. Let's discuss something we haven't spoken about in length before. And it ended up actually, getting some sufficient backing for whatever reason was disclosed. But this is kind of the core issue that we all have. We stay there, we get a recommendation either from ourselves or someone else, we contemplate it, then we don't act on it at all. We don't try it for a little bit. We don't try to squeeze it in whatever we're doing. And you look at the way in which we've seen, I hate to get political here. You have a lot of individuals who lean on the left upset about Trump, but they're not going to elect go around the different states and put Democrats in office to help impeach him, or actually see that get changed, because they're not looking at the bigger picture. They're not going to follow that suggestion. They're just going to stay mad and upset for 4 years until he runs again and gets a second term. But that's their way of viewing things. We're going to just display. They might be genuinely outraged. There's no real doubt in my mind about that. Their opposition, and I think at some points obsession with being against him, but do nothing to actually alleviate the problem, which is him being in office. And they know that we have a Republican majority, which is going to eventually change, presumably depending on how these elections go. They're not going to aid Democrats in those elections, and that's why Trump's going to stay in office, because a party's not going to impeach its own president. So that's another example of how they're not going to follow something different. We're just going to keep talking and talking and hoping it happens. And part of when I discussed giving up on approaching or whatever, I didn't want to sit in one place and not see any change in my own life. I tried to implement it as much as I could. I can't make a person like me. I can't make a person say, "Oh yes, we shall now date. We shall now dine a fine round of wine, hang out together." The best example I could give of because we all get these relapses where we'll see something that this enforces our beliefs or our cynicism or our negativity. I had a woman with whom, for all intents and purposes, I gained a large affection for today. To turn me down after accepting at first. She's beautiful, she's intelligent, she is really the epitome of my attraction. And when it comes to relationships, it's 50-50, put in 50, she puts yeah, good point. I should have read the whole thing. So Vivi, yes, Diamond says when it comes to relationship, it's 50-50. If you put in 50 and she puts in 0, how at fault can you be? I mean, I tried to compromise with her on many things. I'm not trying to say she's some evil person, because I still, even after this, would accept her or otherwise be willing to be involved with her romantically. I have strong admiration for this person. I recognize their importance to me, and I conveyed this to her. And what I got in return was, you are not, you're not special because I talked to this many other people. I can't work this out with you because of X, Y, and Z. And told me at one point, just stop offering solutions. Don't try to fix this. Let it stay broken. Me and this person had many similarities on our personal views and our political views. We didn't like some certain foods, but for the most part, we had many things that one could qualify as being in common. And that's why when she said that, it irritated me to a level that propelled me to talk about it at this point. But it reminds me of society as a whole. We're not going to change things because we're scared and we are worried about actually seeing that real change be implemented. So, for example, if let's say some random man is turned down by, I don't know, a woman, right? And several guys say to him, hey, you know what? You should go and, I don't know, get this type of job. They're going to do this and da 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 da. And he goes, nah, man, if they don't like me for who I am, I'm not going to bother. And he might have the argument of, okay, well, my stance now is I can't make a person like me. That's my stance. And he might have that same belief. And there might be a degree of truth to that. But a lot of times who we are as people, dictates who's into us. So, for example, I had that person tell me, okay, well, I enjoy your manner of speaking and I guess appearance as well. And even if I had the appearance, I still wouldn't have the manner of speaking or knowledge or way of going about discussing a particular subject that she claimed was enticing to her. So let's say this person has this position, this job, after these men have recommended it to him. If he has that position and that job and he's still getting turned down, he can just as easily gain something else. He can go and, I don't know, look into getting another hobby or something else of interest. And I guess the problem is that you end up getting people who tell you, you go exercise, go to the gym, go to go get this job, go get this degree. And, you get irritated by it because you have to jump through all these hoops in their belief that they're helping you to appeal to people that, at the end of the day still can say, I don't want you. And that's another thing. The ones who say that, obviously they're entitled to date whomever they want, no matter if I disagree with it or not, which a lot of times I do. But I'm telling you, I see a recurring trend of the same type of person that they will go after or otherwise, choose to be involved with. That same female I described earlier, I have seen her several times talk about the same type of individual with whom she met through being a sports fan, then finds out he doesn't like it. Is that to say all sports fans are bad? No, but she's doing it in much of the same way. All I'm saying is that when you can look at your own distinctions and know that you're not like this person or that person and someone else can't, yeah, there's an argument for them not being worth your time, but there's also an argument for this whole system of we're worried about actually having things be different from how they were in the past. It gets irritating, and I understand. That's why you have a lot of males and, what was it, MGTOW or the other various groups that dedicate themselves to just not being involved with the opposite sex. I understand that. I try to have a level of idealism at the end of any consecutive amount of losses when it comes to appealing to the opposite sex, but I can still comprehend where they're coming from. And I've even sometimes delved into the realm of, oh, this is never going to work out. And they'll tell you, your lack of confidence is the self-fulfilling prophecy. It's what's causing all of this. But your lack of confidence is caused by what you've experienced in the past. They seem to have this idea that you just one day woke up and said, I can't do this. I see other people doing it. There's no way I can do it. No. It comes from most women just want you to support their ego. I don't know if I necessarily, because I don't think there's a poll of of the amount of women that want you to support their ego. But to give you some kind of credence and acknowledge your argument, I had the one that got upset with me over speaking about her anonymously uh, admit that she had. Oh yeah, I'm not saying she didn't. Your ex, but she had 20 guys respond to her request to interact in a platonic way. Now I was not even speaking to a fourth of females at that point. So she basically acknowledged that she could pick and choose between however many of these individuals she wanted to go and talk to in the way that she and I spoke of, and what made her special to me, which was I wasn't speaking to a majority of not even just women, but people that way, that often, that much. And that's why this is structured the way it is. No matter how special you think they are, no matter how much they matter to you, no matter how much you genuinely feel this person means something to you, when that person has more options than yourself, you become expendable. You become, to an effect, worthless in the eyes of some of these various women we see. And that's not, I'm not saying every woman is that way. I understand that. I know that's not true because I've seen many that are involved with people I know, many I know personally that are on the older spectrum, not acting in that regard. And, I can't deduce what this may be due to, or, why it's that way, but I'm only speculating it's probably having something to do with the fact that social media has made it to where now you can get 50 guys to pay attention to you from all over the world by pressing the like button, or watch your videos because you're attractive, or it's very supporting of that. People keep thinking confidence will trump a woman's option. Yeah, that's part of my argument. Why would you go for McDonald's? You can have Burger King when you can have Sizzler, when you can have Red Lobster. Yeah, the I'm sure Barnes and Nobles is crawling with various women of high quality, or just women at all. They're all sitting up in there reading novels and checking out Harry Potter for the upteenth time. Yeah, that's a very amusing thought. But I didn't want to digress into the relationship thing all the way. I wanted to also mention the fact that the world as it is messed up because of things staying the same, from people being unwilling to engage in. Because think about it. If I'm a guy who wants to date some female that has never been involved with a man that, say, I don't know, the main interest of that person is baseball, and all the guys up to them have been into basketball, and she's also from the basketball. And not only that, but I'm also into waking up early, and all the guys she was with wake up late in the day, and I'm working 2 jobs and the other ones work 3 or 1. Or I'm going to school and the rest were usually just getting jobs. I would see that as widespread change, as something very different from what you've seen in the past. And that's ultimately where people fall short. We are, as a society, afraid of widespread change. If I were to come up to you and say, hey, you know what? I know you're upset with your boss, and I know they're treating you horribly, so I'm going to take it to where I'll give you a new position at my place. You'll make a little bit less, a little bit more. It'll probably be, there's always some little thing that's a little disturbing about it, or otherwise not as good as the other place. But it's doable in the very context of it's accomplishable. It's accomplishable that you can leave that job, you can still have somewhere else to go to, and you can still make the amount of cash needed to pay off whatever your bills are or various expenses. With that being said, you would turn me down and say, oh, well, I'm worried about this and I'm worried about that. And it makes sense to be worried about things. There's a risk in everything we do. But you have to look at the fact that your current situation is not good, or rather it's not ideal. So for example, if I were just a guy who, say, I don't know, was lavish in my lifestyle and I just didn't have any spouse or, female acquaintance, you would say, oh man, he's doing really good for himself. And I, to my, in my wanting to have that companionship, would say, oh yeah, but I'm not having any type of, interactions with the opposite sex. And that would make me feel bad about where I am, even if where I am in the eyes of most, in terms of my revenue, would appeal to them. And what I'm trying to convey to you is that there's no straight or surefire way to do be successful in relationships, and that's kind of why I think it's difficult for many individuals. Not just, I guess there's some females as well that suffer through this. I'm just speaking from my own perspective, of course, so I don't know what the female perspective would be. I've mostly just seen men have it. Um, think about this: when you want to work at a job, they tell you do this at this time, do this at that time, do this at that time, be here at this time. They give you thorough, straight, clarifying instructions. If you want to get a degree, go to these classes, take these classes, go over here, take these classes, study this, pass this test. There you go. It's straight through. It's very much to the point of here. This will be solved in this way. With relationships, you don't have that. There's no book on here's how you attract Wendy, or Yannick, or Will, or if it's there's I'm conveying to you that it's a more complicated issue than probably most other things that people in general are going to have to do on their day-to-day life. I am very much willing to say that, because you can't have any straightforward way of doing this. There just isn't. It's not confirmed on what exact way you attract someone of the opposite sex for women or men. Because there might be some women that think, oh yeah, if I just don't pay him any attention, I'll attract him, when that might have attracted three other guys. That pisses me off. I don't think people advice is wrong per se, but everyone is different. Yeah, I agree, everyone's different. So that's why a lot of these relationship tutorial videos, I used to watch those, and I think to myself, how does this work? How do you know that this? And a lot of times, if the guy's with someone, you give him credence, you believe in him, you listen to him. But if they're not, because I'm not sitting here trying to give you advice other than what I think is the reason for why things are not going to get better for a majority of various things in the world, the relationship thing just being one of them. But I'm also here to kind of spell out the reasons for why I view things the way I do. This isn't just me, being negative and showing my natural cynicism. I'm very upset with how things are for a particular set of events that have happened in the past, and I'm willing to disclose to some effect that does not compromise the privacy of the women involved. I'm not saying anyone's name, I'm not saying where I met them, not saying, if I said what side it was, it still wouldn't reveal who they are. And hello, CA Music. So that's mainly what is problematic for the current circumstance of, I think, not just relations, but why people's lives don't improve as far as on a broad scale, because we all have our individual issues and problems and dilemmas and circumstances. I'm not here to say that we don't, but that's, in my view, why we've seen kind of this level of cynicism over the last several months and past year or so. So thank you for watching. Have a good day.